And a pleasant good afternoon, everybody. Welcome in to another edition of the This Week at Flyers Hockey. I'm your host, James Scorza, with you. And with me, as always, is my group of companions on a very busy Monday night. We got the Eagles-Packers coming up later up at Lambeau. But joining me for the next couple hours or so is Joey Marks and also Austin Hammel. If he join us momentarily, I guess he's having a little bit of technical difficulties. But Joey, how you feeling, my brother?
I'm pumped. I'm trying to get pumped. I'm trying to stay awake. I'm getting old in these years. And listen, the Flyers juiced me up this past week with how well they played. Some of the players that came out and shined. You want to talk about answering the bell with Rick Tocchet? His message about having the Flyer way and the will to play. This week proved to me that this isn't just like a Tortorello scolding and these guys are going to lay down. This was different.
Yeah, it was a good series for the Flyers this week. Obviously, they got 2 points out of it in Montreal, 2 points in actually in the shootout rather against Montreal on Tuesday night, and then they played a good game against Nashville. Got into overtime against the Senators, but the Senators got in a way. Like a buddy of mine would say, they were just an annoying, pesting team for the last handful of years or so. But Joe, I'll ask you the question here since we're going to talk about a weekly recap here. So the Flyers getting a good week of hockey coming into this week, taking on Edmonton in a 2-game series with St. Louis and Dallas and back-to-back nights. But what stood out to you this week with this basically good? I mean, the Flyers, I got to say right now, they're playing their best hockey like probably quite a while. But what stood out to you this week with the Flyers playing to the capability that they had all season to this point?
It really, honestly, the word that came to mind was resilience.
Mm.
Because, like, in that Montreal game, I honestly thought that was going to get away from them. And you and Austin both said, like, this Montreal team, like, they have their strengths and they're very aggressive on the offensive front, and boy are they. And but here's the thing. The Flyers last season would have faced a challenge like that after getting scolded by Tortorello and probably would have laid down.
Right.
Probably wouldn't have given as much will and skill in on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, resilience is the thing that stood out most to me. But more so than that, you got to think about they went into Montreal, a tough place to play. They hadn't lost up until that point. They hadn't lost at home. I know it's still the beginning of the season. They hadn't lost at home. They were really red hot at home, and we went in there and beat them there, which I think is a bigger testament because you don't have the home crowd behind you. You only have your brothers on either side of you, and so that really showed. And then going to Nashville and not letting them snake bite them. And I was kind of glad they didn't let them snake bite them, a bad team. They could have, and that was kind of refreshing. Look, they came home, they played Ottawa tough for the vast majority. And the one player that stood out to me throughout the course of the week that stepped up, and you and I mentioned him uh, earlier last week, Matvei Michkov.
Yeah.
Uh, you
Yep.
know, finally he broke through, and now you just got to hope he can continue to snowball the effect. Look, they got to really. It doesn't stop. Like the next test, last week's test was Montreal. This
Mm-hmm.
week's test is Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
You gotta show that you can hang with the big boys because if
Right.
you do make the playoffs, it's a wonder to your fans whether or not you can play with them. You
Yeah.
know, you play
Absolutely.
with Montreal. Can you play with Edmonton now?
Yeah, that's the question, and I think Edmonton's been struggling a lot as of lately because they over the weekend. We'll talk about the around the NHL in our segment here. So I would say this about the Flyers game on Tuesday night against Montreal. They had a real comfortable lead, and I thought, okay, this team could easily be in the same league as Montreal. I mean, obviously Montreal all season has been coming back in so many ways, and that's why they're so efficient in every which way. But able to take 2 points out of it against Montreal, and also getting 2 points out of a Nashville team that is on. I mean, I would have thought Nashville will have a better of a climb when they brought in Stamkos and also a couple players here and there, but they have just looked like they have lost a big step, and I think that's probably Stamkos probably aging. Probably that's probably the reason being too. He's not the same player like he once was with that Nashville team. When he was with Tampa Bay, he was like winning Stanley Cups and also being the goal he scored he was. But it's kind of like he's having like a little bit of a Vinny LeCavalier syndrome when he came to the Flyers and he started to, and it's like he started to fall a little bit, fall off the face of the earth a little bit. But I gotta say right now, the one positive to come out of this weekend is, like you said, is Matvei Michkov, and I think that's the one thing that was really the positive to see him finally come out of it now and getting a few points out of it, especially against Montreal and against Nashville, and even going into overtime against the Senators. They are definitely looking in really good shape right now.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's right now. We know what Trevor Seagrist is. We know what some of these other guys are, Bobby Brink and whatnot. Michkov is a guy we needed to see kind of shine through. I also want to see if I'm looking ahead now that we have Michkov kind of on the board and ready to go. I want to start to see Owen Tippett get more aggressive. I want to start to see, Travis Konechny showed a little bit more aggression, just had some really unfortunate shots not go in over the past week. I want to see TK put the puck behind in the back of the net. He got, I believe, his 200th goal so far, career goal in the last week or so. So you got to kind of keep in mind, Michkov is not like the centerpiece, but if he goes and Trevor Zegras goes, and you have these other role players like TK and Bobby Brink and Forrester and all these other guys, that's going to really lead to a strong offensive front on this Flyers offense.
Yeah.
So that's what I think you saw early on in the Montreal game. They were trying to be the aggressor. They were trying to be the person putting their foot on the throat.
Right. Yeah, and I think the other thing too is that when you were trying to get a good lead early on them to try to avoid a comeback, I mean, them competing against Montreal was one of the positives that took out of this season. Is that you thought like many years when you have a comfortable lead like that, it usually dissipates in the next two periods. And it didn't happen. I mean, yeah, it dissipated in the second period, but that's been their flaw all season. But when they were able to bounce back against Montreal, I think it's going to be the same ripple effect that they had against probably this week against, like, say, for example, like an Edmonton team that is desperately looking for answers. And I think the other thing, too, is that if they could compete with Montreal against other teams that are in that conference, like in either the Eastern or Western Conference, it can show why this team could be really actually, they're moving one step forward and they're rebuilding. I gotta say right now, it's been really fun to watch.
Well, I mean, you gotta remember. So they jumped on Montreal early, and then you got to think Montreal's not going to lay down either in their building. They're a high-powered offense, and so you knew that they were going to respond. So I think the Flyers tried to do that in a way, jump all over them, hoping that they would, get a far enough lead that they can sustain it. It didn't happen. They went to overtime. They went to a shootout, and I'll say this: that shootout was probably. I'm not the biggest shootout fan, James.
Pretty amazing, right?
But that was probably the best shootout I've ever watched because I was so like I was like, okay, you got to save the puck. Okay, you got to score. Like, I'm sitting here coaching from my couch on the shootout, and like I am not normally like that with the shootout. Normally, I'm just like,
hey, what's up, brother?
How's it going, guys? My apologies for being late. I am resettling myself from a bit of a mini vacation. So,
I gotcha. Yeah, I was gonna say, like me and Joey brought it up earlier. It's like I guess it's like something in the something in the earth or something in the climate today that feels like everybody's exhausted today after a long weekend.
Yeah, the weather's really weird up here today. It snowed for a bit up here.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know how. I mean, it's overcast over here. It's not raining or anything, but it was like humid the last couple of days or so.
Yeah,
but
me as heck.
Yeah, just I would say soupy a little soupy.
Yeah, too. Yeah, that would probably be a better term.
Yeah. So me and Joey were talking about basically that we were talking about the week that happened with the Flyers. Obviously, 2 points out of it in Montreal, 2 points on Nashville on Thursday, and taking an overtime loss against the Senators. But I'll ask you this question before we move on here. What stood out to you about this week with this Flyers team that is actually moving one step forward in their rebuild? And I gotta say, it's been fun to watch so far with this team going into a question I would ask you too is that what's the keys? What kind of success have you seen this Flyers team play with the capability they have in the last couple weeks?
The thing that I've seen this week that's really been impressing me is the play of our defensemen, specifically Cam York and Jamie Drysdale. Those guys have been very involved in the offensive scheme this past week. They've been getting their points. Cam York had, I think it was a goal and 3 assists during this whole week. So, I mean, those guys are really starting to put their contributions in to help out this team, both offensively and defensively, and it's really starting to show.
Yeah. And I think the other thing, too, is like the standout is the star of the week has been Matvei Michkov finally coming into his own. So, finally, I got to say right now, it's been a long time coming from Michkov, Austin. And I got to say right now, I think he's probably going to, like, since he's got that first goal, I think he's going to start to get more and more as the season goes on here.
Yeah, absolutely agree. He's starting to find his rhythm more and more with each game, and it's starting to show that the rhythm has gotten back to pretty, if not at the level yet, but very, very close now to the same rhythm that we saw him with last season. He's getting himself into his good spots. He's finding people really well within the open ice. He's making moves. I mean, of course, there were a couple breakaways throughout the week that, if you can lift the puck just a little bit more, maybe get, sell a little bit harder on a fake wrister or something, you may be able to get a commitment and get a goal. But the movement for Michkov and some of the other guys on this team, it's starting to come together a bit more as you see the way they're playing, especially in the Montreal game.
Right.
They battled in that game. So tough to be able to come up. We were up 3-0, went down 4-3 at the end of the second period, and then just battled through to tie it up in the, I want to say it was pretty late in the third, if I recall. Grabankin at the 10:51 mark tied it up at 4 to send it into overtime, and then just battling through that. Like, this team is proving that they can fight. And even though you lose to Ottawa, you force the issue by shutting them down the second and third period and getting the only goals in both of those to force the overtime. Granted, you lose in overtime, but you're showing that you have the fight in you to be able to play against some of these tougher teams.
Yeah.
Austin, I wanted to ask you a question about that Montreal game. So in the overtime, I noticed, and I'm not sure if either of you two noticed, but Montreal plays a different style of hockey than most teams in overtime. With a 3-on-3, they almost kind of play, if I had to kind of put it in like similarities, they play like a cover 2, and then they just wait to you clear out and they clear the puck, and then they all rush and they bum rush you.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like they'll hold the puck and wait for everybody's ready. Okay, now we're gonna go in, and it's just such an interesting concept. Because I honestly thought it was very defensive, but then when they went on the attack, boy, I mean, they just were like bees.
Yeah, right.
Montreal, especially in overtime, is really good at just like asserting their will going forward with the puck. Like you said, they drop back into almost like a football style cover 2. They have one of their forwards drop back into defense and play back to split that ice in half defensively. And then once they pick that thing up, they're like, okay, we're going to settle in, give ourselves a quick sec. All right, you guys are where you need to be. Boom. And they all just move in almost perfect unison, the way that Montreal gets around, especially, well, just across the league at overtime in general, teams move so much more fluidly because of the fact that it's less people on the ice, so you have more space to be able to do everything that you want to do. You're seeing such incredibly high-paced play. Like, once they announced that they were going to be doing 3-on-3 overtime, I was like, oh, dude, this is going to be so good. Just teams are going to be able to open up and just go crazy. And we've seen some really insane sequences in these 3-on-3 overtimes since its inception. And I think you're only seeing teams get more creative as the time goes on with it too.
Yeah, it's a lot of free ice too. That's the other thing too with the 3-on-3s too, is that I remember when it was first installed, like probably it was like 2015, 16, and then I think it was the first Flyers game. They actually went into overtime against Tampa Bay, and I said, "Wow, this actually looks a little bit different because there's a lot, like a lot of free sheet of ice. Obviously, like 3-on-3 players is not a like. I mean, obviously, if it's a 4-on-4, it's like depending on the situation. If there's like penalties or probably like offset power plays, and that's why they can't go to a 3-on-3 after a power play. But yeah, I mean, I think the one thing that even was a positive too is that they even did it in the All-Star game a few years ago, like a round robin with the 3-on-3s, and I think that's probably before the Four Nations face off this year, I mean, it was kind of cool to see that kind of stuff. But I think overtime has gotten better, and even the shootout this year for the Flyers' too sake is that they have been playing to basically. I mean, they're never good at shootouts, but I have to say I'm very impressed how they've been playing so far.
Yeah, I mean, Trevor Zegras definitely helps with the shootout. I honestly, I
Oh
just
yeah.
feel like it's so unique in some ways with the 3-on-3. How, as Austin kind of pointed out, like some of these teams have attacked it different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Montreal attacks it differently than the Flyers, and sometimes like there are certain teams that will still do the drop and chase, dump and chase, and as a 3-on-3, when you do the dump and chase, sometimes that leaves you more vulnerable because there isn't as many bodies to get to the puck.
Mm-hmm.
But when you have these different strategies, that really changes how, as like the defensive team is concerned, how the team has to attack it. Because if you're too aggressive, you're going to get caught out of position, and
Right.
you're going to leave your goalie naked, and that's not a good place for your goalie to be right there.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really what I saw with Montreal, is that they've just like, okay, we're going to get settled in. And then when we're going to get settled in, it's very difficult for a team once they're settled in on a 3-on-3 to kind of clear the zone, because again, you don't want to be left out of position.
Yeah,
absolutely.
absolutely. So my dad brings up a good here. Joe Scorza says two things about Matvey Michkov here. He says, I think Michkov has readjusted his game with the new coach and a different system. Remember, it's only his second year in the NHL. I do agree with that. And also, he says something about him and also Trevor Zegras have a very good dynamic duo in the shootout, and it's much better to watch a team in the shootout now because of those two players in general too.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And look, when you have these guys that are performing well in the shootout, that ultimately helps the rest of the team, because not a lot of pressure. You don't have this overwhelming pressure that it's on the last skater.
Mm-hmm.
That it's on someone like Sean Couturier or Travis Konechny or stuff like that. You
Sure.
have Zegras and Michkov kind of going as your 1-2 possibly. You have a really, and you know what? Bobby Brink is getting good at it too.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is where the trickle down effect of talent and skill kind of, goes down the line for the Philadelphia Flyers and their lineup.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right, so let's move on here. So the Flyers are coming up this week at a couple games, and all Western teams rather. I was going to say one or two, but they got Edmonton on Wednesday. That's going to be, I would be sure that should be a TNT matchup. That should be a little bit of an old school Wednesday night rivalry or hockey matchup like NBC used to have back in the day.
Yeah.
So that will be on Wednesday. Then we got the Flyers in the back-to-back situation up at St. Louis on Friday night, and then taking on the Stars on Saturday night. So I'll ask you guys this question here. Give me, Joey. Give me what will you be your keys to the game for these three games coming up here? Because I mean, other than St. Louis being like the barn burner team, I mean, Edmonton and Dallas are pretty legitimate good teams coming into this game, and it's going to be another big test for the Flyers this week, no question about it.
Yeah, I think the keys that I'm going to be looking for is solid goaltending.
Mm-hmm.
Vedard has kind of let a couple ugly goals kind of go through. He started the season very hot when he was not, like his first 7 or 8 starts. He basically only allowed 1 goal, and that was it. It's been a little bit sloppier, but he's also played against much more talented offenses. I'm looking for him to kind of settle down a little bit, kind of get into his groove again. And no, I'm not expecting him to have just give up one goal. But what I am hoping for is that he can continue to give kind of that number one starter performances, especially against Edmonton and Dallas. Like you said, look, you're bookending two really good teams in the week, starting with Edmonton and ending with Dallas. You have to show that you can hang with these two teams offensively, because those two teams are going to score on you. And that's
Yeah.
why I'm saying, as much as I want Bedard to, perform well and kind of settle in, you can't expect him to, he can't be Superman through the whole course of the week. So you have to pick up, just like you did with just like you did with Montreal. You have to pick up the mantle and kind of get on the board first.
Hmm.
Scoring first is my second key to the game for most of these games, is for the Flyers to score first. My third key to the game for these games for the Flyers is definitely continuing the hot streak of the power play, making sure that when the Flyers are on the power play, they are in attack mode. They have had a really good power play this season, a lot better than when, like I said, James, when we talked to JJ, a lot better than all of us really pretty much expected. JJ said he would be satisfied with 20. I think we're in the teens right now. So as far as ranked power plays. So, those are my three keys for these next three games.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. Sorry, Austin. I just called you Mitch for a sec. I'm sorry about that, buddy. What were your keys to the game this week with the three teams coming up against Edmonton, St. Louis, and Dallas this week?
First key, I'm going to echo what Joe said with his first. The goaltending play is going to be paramount. These teams, all three of them, will do everything they can to make your guy between the pipes as uncomfortable as possible, be it Vladar, be it Urson.
Right.
Fingers crossed nothing happens, and it may be Kolosov, you never really know.
Yeah.
But all three of these teams are very unrelenting in their offensive attack, especially a team like an Edmonton Oilers. Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, those guys are very, very dangerous. And if you can have even just a shred of what you saw this past week from Erison and Vladar, you're going to be in a really solid spot. Number two for me is the play of the defense. Again, just echoing pretty much the same stuff that I just said. These offenses are really strong. You need to be able to lock these guys down and try and keep the shots limited that get through. And with the play that we've seen from the Travis Sanheims, the Jamie Drysdales, Cam Yorks, all these guys, just keep that play going. Keep yourself. Keep cutting off shooting lanes, cutting off passing lanes, transition well into the offensive game. Just help this team play as much contain on the offenses that you're going up against as possible. And then number three for me is going to be some of the younger guys, Trevor Zegras, Matvei Michkov, Bobby Brink. Like, these guys are starting to really find their groove and come into their own as like key contributors to this offense. And a lot of it is running, especially through Trevor Zegras. You want to have those guys get going early and often in all three of these games this week. And I feel like setting the pace with Edmonton for how you're going to play out the rest of your week is going to be a really good, Joe, you use this term a lot. It's going to be a good litmus test for this Philadelphia team. Edmonton is, we honestly mirrored all these same sentiments last week going into the game against Montreal. This is a very dangerous Edmonton team. They have all the capabilities of, making that big playoff push for themselves again this season. They have all the pieces in place. McDavid and Draisaitl, one of, if not the best 1-2 punch in the NHL today. And if you can limit those kinds of guys like them, Tyler with Dallas, if you limit Tyler Seguin, Jamie Benn, those kinds of guys, like if you can limit their key contributors, you're going to end up in a really good spot, which that comes to the defense again. It's going to be this big cycle of good, solid goaltending play, solid defense in front, and letting your key contributors be able to contribute, and you'll have a really good chance at winning these games.
Yeah, and I think that's perfectly said by you guys too, especially with a couple players here too. So, for me, it's like the same thing you guys are saying about the three games here this week with Edmonton and then St. Louis and Dallas. For me, number one should be plain and simple. Is that how you can keep Leon Draisaitl and Connor McDavid like off the score sheet, and also because they've been so effective. And like you said there, Austin, that they are really a really good team that probably by the end of the year they could be another chance. They could probably go to another Stanley Cup final because they're that good. For me, for for St. Louis, for number 2 with St. Louis, though, I mean, I'm kind of disappointed how they're playing because they're a lot better than who they are because they got a lot of good. I mean, Robert Thomas is a good player. I'm a big fan of Colton Parayko. I think Parayko reminds me a little bit of Rasmus Ristolainen when he was coming out a little bit. So I mean, yeah, obviously they don't got Tarasenko like they used to have, and also when they had TJ Oshie at the time too, and even Keith Kachuk. But yeah, this is like I mean, even winning a Stanley Cup like back 7 years ago and seeing how they've fallen ever since then. I mean, it's kind of, I mean, I actually feel for them because they look like they're like trying to get their footing a little bit, but at the same time too, they're trying to see what fits and what doesn't fit. And I think Jim Montgomery, after when he left the Bruins, I mean, I felt like he had one good year, and then after that, they started to torment it after that. So, but for me, I mean, the one thing with St. Louis is concerned too is that their goaltender is beatable. I mean, Jordan Binnington is beatable, or the other guy, Hauser, is another good mindset too to keep a close eye on too to see what they do with St. Louis. And I think St. Louis, I mean, if the Flyers can get on them early, that'll be a big positive like they do with Edmonton. Like you said, Joey, too, is they score first. As the mass majority of the time when the Flyers score first, they actually win the game more precisely. And the other thing too with Dallas, I mean, the thing with Dallas is like they're a pesky team. They got a lot of good players on that team. They got Rope Hintz. They got Wyatt Johnston. That's a really good player for them. They got even like Mikko Rantanen. That's been the star of the show for the in the postseason last year. If you didn't see how good he was against that Avalanche series, and even Jake Ottinger. I mean, Ottinger is like one of the goaltenders that is really good for them. So that will be. It'll be a little bit of a tall task there, but if the Flyers, I mean, I can see the Flyers take 2 out of 3 in this series this week. I mean, maybe I see them beat Edmonton. Maybe they lose to Dallas, probably win to Dallas, or probably I can see them win against St. Louis too. But more importantly, I mean, I see the Flyers win 2 out of 3, or even more so, they win. Or if they like win mass majority of the time and also win all 3 games, that's even better in my opinion.
Yeah, I could see this going a couple different ways. With Edmonton,
Same.
It's going to be it's going to be a nail biter.
Mm-hmm.
I want to say my heart says 2-1 with this week, but my head says 1-2. Just because. Well, you know what? I'm going to split the difference. I'm going to split the baby. I'm going to go. It's going to be 1-1-1. You're going to have 1 win, 1 loss, and 1 overtime loss.
That's fair.
And because I honestly think you're going to steal a point, whether it's or 2, whether it's from Edmonton or Dallas. Because if this team has proven anything up to this point, it's that they are not willing to go away and lay down. They have a lot of resilience. Like I started the show by saying, this is what this team. This is the culture of this team. They are not going to lay down. They are not going to give up. They are going to just keep fighting and hope that the result reflects the effort. And I think sometimes, especially, when we go back to what Talk had said about the will, them showing enough will, I think as young kids, and we got to remember, this is one of the youngest teams in the league. As young kids, sometimes when you fail, sometimes when you try as hard as you can and you fail, it's difficult to just get the energy back up and flush it, like Jalen Hurts would say, flush it and just move along.
Right.
So sometimes they carry that, and they have to learn as professionals the best ways to get over the tough losses. So my prediction for this week is 1-1-1. I think that they're going to steal at least 3 points this week.
So, yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense because you think about it. I mean, Dallas is a feisty team. St. Louis probably. I could see 1-1, 1-1 too, because I could see them probably steal a point with either Edmonton or Dallas, like you mentioned, Joe. I mean, for me, I would like to see a shock of the world and just see the Stars actually just get shunned by the Flyers. I mean, obviously, maybe it's probably just me that it's like that Philly Dallas hate I have, but no offense to our buddy David Burns, who's living in Cedar Hill, Texas, is joining us, and thanks for chiming in, buddy. I appreciate it. Hit that like and subscribe button on our platforms, but yeah, I mean, with Dallas, it's just, I mean, they've been a feisty team ever since. I mean, I remember when I was a kid watching like a Mike Modano his 500th goal, hard to believe, was against the Flyers in that 2006-2007 team. Yeah, they had Brett Hall once in a while, and Mike Keane, and the list goes on and on, in that 99 Dallas Stars team and all that too before they went back in 2000 but lost to the New Jersey Devils. But yeah, I mean, that team to me, the Dallas Stars were a team that you couldn't hate them, but at the same time too is that you had to respect their game a little bit, and also, I mean, I was a big Mike Modano fan, so I had to say that that's probably why I became a closet Dallas Stars fan, because he was just one player that the Flyers would have had probably, and as long as I can remember. But yeah, but they're just a feisty team, so I see if they either win a game against Dallas or probably play spoiler alert against Edmonton along the way. So that should be a big matchup here, and especially this week will be a real big tall task for the Flyers to see what they have in store against those three teams, no question. All right, so let's move on here. So we'll go around the National Hockey League in this week. So there's a couple games going on tonight, obviously. Not a lot of big games here tonight. We got the Islanders taking on the Devils. That's at Prudential Center. We got Nashville taking on New York. And the Rangers keep on losing at home, and that's a little bit of shocking thing to see how they're good on the road, but they look really bad at home. Obviously, we got Columbus and Edmonton tonight. So after the game against Columbus, they will ship to Philly here, and then get ready for the first game against the Oilers this weekend at Xfinity Mobile Arena. I was just going to call it Wells Fargo Center. I still got to catch myself every once in a while. And we got a big matchup coming up in Vegas tonight when the Vegas Golden Knights taking on the Florida Panthers. So, I mean, I was going to ask you, like, what will be the one game you'll be keeping a close eye on, but I forgot the Eagles play the Packers tonight. So maybe I get to the Eagles win against Green Bay, I'll be keeping a close eye on is that Vegas Golden Knight Florida Panthers series before I call tonight.
Yeah, I'm with you. The Vegas and Panthers game seems really interesting because that, we talk about Edmonton and what they could possibly do to make a run at the Cup. Vegas is just right there. They're always just right there. And so this potentially could be a Stanley Cup preview.
Yeah.
So this is a interesting game in many fronts because I don't think Florida is they're good, but I don't think they have been as, I guess, tightly formed together as they have been in the last 2 years. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes, what way the ice tilts in this matchup.
You got any games? That Florida Vegas game is going to be a really fun one.
Yeah,
honestly, the Devils Islanders game, I personally am going to be keeping an eye on because New Jersey is, I believe it was tied for second in the league in points. Oh, no, tied for third with Carolina and Montreal, all three of them sitting at 22 points. For me, just to see, because I've been peeking in on them all season long, see the Devils just play. I mean, there's a reason that they're up there right now, and they have been playing some out of sight hockey, and just to be able to catch Hughes and all those guys down there in New Jersey, defending the Rock against the Islanders coming down from Long Island. It's more going to be like I'm going to peek in every once in a while because of the fact that the Eagles and Packers game is going, but
right.
Definitely for sure once the festivities are over with Monday Night Football, I will for sure be tuning into that Vegas game.
Yeah, no question. If depending on that Eagles game and how exhausted I am by the end of the night, I'll probably have to watch it the next day on probably YouTube and watch the highlights of that too. Yeah. So yeah, you said it best there too, Austin, about that Devils New York Islander game, and they've been really good at home too the last handful of games. I mean, even like seeing a young team like New Jersey kind of reminds me of the Flyers a little bit, how they have a lot of good young players on that team like Luke Hughes and Jack Hughes. I mean, the Islanders, to me, I mean, yeah, it's not going to be about – I mean, I think the Islanders are a good team. They got Nolan Schaefer coming out in the draft, and I think it'll take a couple years for them to rebuild from that. The shock to me is a little bit is that the Rangers obviously have a good record on the road, and they can't even win they can't win at home. They haven't won at home going back to the beginning of the season. I mean, this has been like a running trend for like almost a month now, actually more than a month. And obviously Nashville, they got Stamkos. I mean, we brought it up in last week's show is that maybe Stamkos is probably starting to fall a little bit because he's starting to age a little bit. But but I gotta say right now, maybe the big game I'll keep a close eye on tonight. Maybe I'll keep Edmonton to keep a close eye on to see what Columbus does and see what they'll look like against the Flyers on Wednesday night. So that'll be definitely one thing for sure to keep a close eye on. But definitely, I'll be definitely looking forward to that Florida Vegas Golden Knight matchup. Like you said, Joey, could be a Stanley Cup preview before the season's over.
Yeah, and to chime in on both the Rangers and the Devils. So with the Devils, it's interesting because for about the last year or two, I've kind of looked at them as the prototype of what Danny Briere is trying to build here in Philly.
Right.
Like young talent and just grooming it and progressing the prospects along. Taking your growing pains where you can and just hope that you have sustainable success with the youth. Going forward in coming years. Jersey's not going away. Like that's the thing everyone knows because they have young talent. With the Rangers, it's interesting because like 2 years ago, I remember that everyone talking about how they had young talent and they were up and coming. And now, especially at the Garden, like them losing so much at the Garden, that used to be a sanctuary for them.
Yeah.
And now it seems like it's a house of horrors. And so I am going to be interested to see, if the Rangers snap out of it or if they're the team that's on the down skid. And that opens up, as much as we look at some of the teams that are on the upswing, some of these teams that are on the downslide, you're looking at them because they were potentially playoff contending teams or they were playoff contending teams a year or two ago. Them dropping off of that map of being playoff teams means that there's going to be an open spot for the Flyers to slide on in. And I think that's the momentum in which the Flyers need to keep in mind. We're not that far from the quarterway part of this season. So we can't say soon we're not going to be able to say, well, it's only 5 games or, well, it's only 6 games. We're almost quarter way through the season. It's almost that time for that evaluation of whether or not this team is legit or fraud.
And also, crunch time will be coming before you know it. Obviously, that second half after the Olympic break will be something to keep a close eye on too. So I guess the other thing too is before we move on here is that this is going to be what you'll look like against teams that are really good in the postseason play. Obviously, I mean Dallas and, like I said, St. Louis and Edmonton. I mean, St. Louis might be on the outside looking on, just like the Rangers, like you brought up there, Joey. But yeah, Edmonton and Dallas are going to be a real tall task for them. But if they can compete like they did with the other teams like Montreal and like Ottawa, like I think they'll win a lot more games, especially depending on the situation too. Sure, it might not be regulation wins, but shootouts wins and also overtime wins and also getting points any way necessary will definitely help them more than anything. And also help their cause, especially in those games that matter the most when the time calls for it.
Absolutely.
All right, so we got an injury report here to tell you guys, obviously. So it's basically the same as been the last couple weeks or so. Tyson Foerster, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Albert Bunk are still all on injured reserve. I think we're going to see Foerster back before you know it. I think he's getting better. I think it's starting to get better for him, but I'm still kind of shocked to see. I never understood what was Ristolainen's injury to begin with. I guess it was something that he had at the end of the season, and I guess it started to linger and had a couple setbacks and I remember the injury, what it was, but I don't know what significant the timetable was for him to be out for. So it'll be something to definitely monitor, especially once he gets closer and closer to play in once it gets closer and closer to hopefully back to 100%, and hopefully Tyson Forster will be back hopefully as soon as this weekend, especially those teams that we mentioned, and Edmonton and St. Louis and Dallas coming up this week.
James,
Yeah,
I'll ask you. I know Rooster is your guy and
Yeah.
everything. The Flyers have been playing really well, and as Austin pointed out earlier, the defense has been playing really well.
Yeah.
That being said, would you be completely shocked if the Flyers, once Rooster came off injury reserve, whether or not close to the trade deadline they'd even contemplate trading him? Because
It's a good question. It's a good question there, Joe.
if the defense is already playing well without him,
Yeah.
they can gain an asset for him. There's still people in the minors and the juniors
Yeah.
that they could bring up.
I mean, it's a good question to have, especially maybe that's what I was kind of thinking too. Is probably the reason why he hasn't been playing. Is been trying. I guess they're trying to look for like a trade partner for him. I guess they're trying to figure out. Okay, we can trade away Ristolainen, and also we can get like somebody big in return. Like, I mean, the other thing too is that if I'm going to talk about former Buffalo Sabres, I would be very happy to see is Dylan Cousins. Dylan Cousins with Ottawa now. But I'm saying, if the Flyers were going to trade Ristolainen, I would trade him back to Buffalo for like a Dylan Cousins, or even like someone that not Edmonton, but like Buffalo is trying to rebuild with their players. Obviously, you're not going to get like a Rasmus Dahlin, obviously, but I would think like Owen Power is a good example of that. Maybe like Tage Thompson probably will. I mean, but I'll probably go a little bit off. I mean, just see what they look like. I mean, obviously Buffalo is not going anywhere. Let's keep it real here. I mean, they've been really struggling the last handful of months, but I would also like to see what their assets will be like if they want to trade them to like a San Jose, maybe a player or maybe like just like something
Like
just
a
to get
playoff
them.
contending team.
Yeah, or maybe someone that's not going anywhere and wants to just want to get rid of some players just because they're way over the cap, or probably looking to try to rebuild or something.
Yeah.
And I was looking into the Ristolainen injury on the 27th. They were talking about he was going to be about another 4 to 6 weeks out from potentially playing.
Oh wow,
he's recovering from a triceps injury.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
so especially with defensemen, the amount of active arms that you have to have playing that position, it's going to be really tough trying to get back into the swing of things with a triceps injury for sure.
Yeah, and especially Oliver Bunk on injured reserve too, because I remember Bunk watching him in the Frozen Four last year. Was pretty cool to see that he'll be. Hopefully, when he comes up soon, it'll be a real good asset on that defense too, to see what he'll do, especially to see what he does, especially like on good teams, especially like that too. But obviously, Bump is a good example of that. Adam Bump. I'll be looking forward to see what he has in store too. But hopefully, right now, I mean, the Flyers are looking really good at looking in a positive direction in the rebuild, and hopefully Tyson Forster will be back as soon as hopefully in the next couple weeks or so too.
Yeah, I think Tyson will be back, possibly either by the Dallas game or by early next week.
That'll be great.
I honestly think.
Yeah, it'll probably be early next week. Especially because I believe it was leg related, right? Lower body.
I think so.
Yeah, you want to make sure that he's able to get himself back up to, in terms of just actually moving, just get himself back up to proper speed before you try and throw him in there.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on here before we get out of here. Obviously, we got the Birds and the Packers tonight on Monday Night Football at Lambeau. So basically, we talked about it early on in this game. We talked about the look ahead for the Flyers, especially against teams like Edmonton and especially Dallas and St. Louis this week. Is there any last words we can say about the Flyers can do this week to actually get like 2 points out of this big hole that the Flyers have, especially against Edmonton, St. Louis, and Dallas this week? Or you think do we still think that the Flyers could I would say they can play spoiler alert against Dallas. They could play spoiler alert against Edmonton, and also we could play. For me, I would say that the Flyers have to do this week is that just basically like Jalen Hurts would say, just keep the main thing for this Flyers team. I think they're playing back to the capability that they had. Obviously, they lost a couple games, but they never lost their focus. And I think, I think I'm in the same boat as you, Joe. I think they'll probably go 1-1 on this this road trip, obviously after the Oilers on Wednesday, and I think that could be a very good understatement about what the Flyers will look like for the rest of the week, going into the week after that, and hopefully going into the next couple of weeks, especially before the holiday break.
Yeah, here's my thing, James. This is what I would say is
Hmm.
that I would tell the Flyers like to not be intimidated. Like if you guys think that you want to be the playoff contending team that you want they aim to be, you got to hang with the big teams, which means you can't be fearful that or intimidated that Edmonton comes in with the high-powered weapons like Draisaitl and Connor McDavid. Like you have to understand, they might have them, but we have Trevor Zegras and Matvei Michkov.
That's right.
We have guys too that can be just as powerful. So you can't be intimidated. Like at some point in the rebuild, you have to not just say, "Oh, well, it's Edmonton, so that's a scheduled loss."
Right.
Like, no, we're not doing that anymore. This is where this is the transition between accepting defeat because you're trying to rebuild and expectate and expecting to win because of your skill set.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to understand, Montreal, I said this earlier in the show, Montreal got smacked in the face by the Flyers because I don't think they expected to lose in their house, and they did. I don't think the Panthers earlier in the season expected to lose to the Flyers. These are some of the key, and we talk about the Toronto game. We talk about some of these key matchups against the Flyers that they've had early on. They've had, as I like using the litmus test, they have had a strong amount of opponents, strong schedule this early on in the season, and they have not wavered. They're not in the basement. They're not where the Rangers are. They're not where the Calgary Flames are. They are right there, neck and neck with some of these teams.
Legitimate.
And
They were like right there.
yeah, and they have to believe that. So what the next steps that they have to do is buy into their own skill set, buy into their own height. Believe that you guys are just as good, if not better, than the guys that Edmonton is and Dallas and St. Louis.
Said it best there, brother. Austin, I'll ask you the same question to you. The look ahead for the Flyers. Is there anything that sticks out to you that the Flyers need to do this week before this big game's coming up this week?
Honestly, a lot of it's just going to be, trying to maintain the mindset that you've had coming out of the past week that you had with the way that you played. I feel like they're my personal expectation for them going through this week is going to be 2-0-1. I don't think they lose in regulation this week. I think it's just a further proof of the fight that they've been putting forward. I think you lose probably late overtime or in the shootout to Edmonton. It's just going to be one of those games where you weather the storm for a while, you force it into extra hockey, and then they just blow the door off of you with how they play in the 3-on-3 transition game. St. Louis is a bit of a ramshackle group. They still have a good amount of fight in them. Binnington, like you said earlier, James, has been proven that he is extremely beatable from time to time.
Yeah.
So I feel like you walk away from that with a solid, hard-fought win. And then Dallas, I think, is just going to be a slugfest, like a 5-4 potential final outcome with Philadelphia being on top there. It's going to be one of those weeks where you're going to have to white-knuckle grip the entire time, but you are going to get some really good hockey this upcoming week from Philadelphia.
Yeah, definitely.
I wanted to just mention, because like Austin brought up about Binnington, so did you. I heard this on one of the other telecasts for the Flyers. JJ and Boosh brought it up. Binnington, I believe he's already slated to be the starting goaltender for
the Olympics.
For the Olympics. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, here's the thing. He struggled this year, but the reason why he is slated there is because for whatever reason, his country thinks he's just having a bad year. So and look, he's had good years.
Yeah.
So I'm not sleeping on Bennington having a good game.
No, yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think Bennington's going to have a terrible game. I just think that he's proven this year is proving that he's more human than he has appeared himself to be over the past couple of years. The man is a tenacious athlete, an incredible goaltender, and I just think Philadelphia is going to get the better of them in their matchup this week.
Yeah, I'm right there with you guys. So, for me,
St. Louis, if you think he's so horrible, you can trade him to us.
Yeah, we'll take him.
Yeah, we'll bring him. Yeah, we'll bring him.
Take care of him. Just throwing it out there. If you know.
Yeah, give him give him like a young prospect like Kolosov, or give him like Urson for Jordan. Can you imagine we get Bennington and Vladar? That would be
nuts.
That would be insane.
Two freak athlete goalkeepers, dude. Oh my goodness.
Yeah. 2 for the price of 1. Oh my god.
I mean, even Urson's been playing fairly well this year. So either way, like you're getting another really good athlete between the pipes. If you are able to pull an Urson for Bennington's straight up trade, that would be incredible. One steal of the century if you can pull that full on daylight robbery if you can trade Urson for Bennington.
Yeah,
but then just you look at. Because I'm pretty. Let me look up how tall Jordan Bennington is because he's
one
dude.
Yeah, he's like 6'7", like without pun intended, but still. That's at that.
Yeah, so
yeah, he's 6'2" goalkeeper. Like the guy's long, man.
Oh man, that's I mean, I think Vladar is like 6'5". Like he's like 6. Yeah. He's like 6'5", 6'6".
He's the tallest dude on the roster.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is St. Louis, the phone lines are open. You can call. We're taking calls. Don't worry.
You know what's funny? I forgot tonight's the NHL Hall of Fame. I forgot all about that. I said to myself, we got a big dude going into the Hall of Fame. Zdeno Chara going in tonight, along with Joe Thornton.
Wow. I want to take a minute to talk about that, man. What a career Zdeno Chara had, and to be what was first ballot for him, right? For the Hall of Fame?
I think so.
Absolutely deserved. That man, not only was he just a giant on skates, but he was a giant in terms of his actual play and his leadership capability. He stepped into Boston after coming out of being drafted by the Islanders when that team was just a literal fire sale in a dumpster fire.
Yeah.
Because they traded him and they wanted to sign what was the key Rick DiPietro to like a 15-year deal, and the NHL was like, no. So they started selling off a lot of their assets. Chara was one of them.
DiPietro is coming off of the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah,
so
the Chicago Wolves Foundation too. He was a part of that Wolves Calder Cup team, but I think the next they actually true story. I remember watching this, and they brought Rick DiPietro from Bridgeport to come to the Wolves to get championship experience for him. They try to get him some championship experience after they won a Turner Cup.
But yeah, the Islanders organization that Zdeno Chara left was when I believe it was Mike Milbury was the GM, and he was just selling off everything. Like it looked like he wanted to literally take that team and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was almost like he was trying to force the NHL's hand in that respect. But like went from there to Ottawa, proved himself to be a very, very good defenseman in a very fast game for someone his size. Mm-hmm. Not only that, just a sheer dominating presence. Like he would manhandle the crap out of people. Like what was it? He locked up with Matthias Timander during the big fight game.
Right.
And then from there, going from Ottawa, leaving in free agency, testing the market, going to Boston, and just cementing himself as one of the best leaders that team has seen since maybe Cam Neely. Like
that's true.
Just an incredible career for him. Joe Thornton as well. Like I remember watching him when he first started up playing with Boston, and then he got moved off, went to, I believe it was San Jose for such a long time. Him, Pat Marleau, Vincent Damphousse, like was at the end of his career there. I'm a big San Jose Sharks guy. So like,
as do I.
Yeah, and the runs they had with Nabokov in net,
Tauskala, Vesa Tauskala too.
Yeah, just the sheer level of talent that he put forth playing in his career, to see both of those guys make it into the Hall of Fame, very justified. Hats off to both of them for the incredible careers that they had. Big Z, neither of you guys got a chance to wear Flyers orange, and I kind of am mad about that, but I'm not going to be mad about the fact that you guys, especially Chara, man, in my opinion, if not the best defender in my generation.
Absolutely. Yeah. I concur. 100%. The other thing too is that I got to give Joe Thornton a lot of praise here because since we're talking about Zdeno Chara here and also talking about Joe Thornton there, I remember where I was when Joe Thornton got traded to San Jose, and I thought it was like, holy shit, what are they doing? And then basically the Bruins, I would have thought there would be like dead sharks in water, and just had to worry about that for like the next 15 years. And then Zdeno Chara comes in, and it was like a jubilation to the team.
Yeah, the thing about it is with Boston, they have a way of always kind of bouncing back with certain players, Lucic and like all
That's
these.
Right, Lucic, yeah, right, Krejci, David Krejci, oh my god,
Marchand,
yep,
and so like that what's cool is it's a really big night for Boston because in some way, shape, or form, both of these guys wore that Boston B on their chest, and they represented that team very well. Look, with Char, we brought it up last week because I remember watching the one game where I heard about this guy who was I believe he was with the Penguins, that I brought it up and you looked it up, Austin. And
with Nashville,
right,
like 6'8".
Yeah, and I'm like, I don't want to face that guy. I'm 5'10". And like that guy's 6'8" without skates on. I mean, skates gives you about 2 or 3 more inches. That's like Big Show skating around the ice, like waiting to lay people out. I'm like, no, I'm good.
Joe, I'm 6'4", and even if I laced up, I wouldn't want to stand next to that guy.
I'll stand behind you. Yeah. So I'm standing behind you.
You're standing behind me. I'm finding a bigger guy to put in front of me to put in between me and that guy.
I remember Chara and Shea Weber in that skills competition, and it was with that laser being shot, man.
Yes.
Just neither of them went under 102.
Yeah.
Just absolute missiles.
Like,
yeah, dude.
It was like
oh my god.
102.8, 103, and all of a sudden you see like Chara's like
101.7 or 10 something.
Like, the commentators were like, "Can we just keep doing this all night? I just want to keep doing this all night."
It was must-see hockey. I remember I watched that the first time. I said to myself, "It's like, damn, these two are like." They were like kind of like Steph Curry and Sabrina SQ or Caitlin Clark, but at the same time too.
In my opinion, that slapshot shootout was equivalent to, I believe it was
amazing,
the 2000 NBA dunk contest.
Yes.
It was at like the same level. As, I mean, it's not as flashy. Don't get me wrong. Like that Vince Carter dunk contest was probably the best single performance that I've ever seen in my entire life. But watching Weber and Chara just almost tear the back off of that frame for literally like 15 minutes would have been well worth the price of admission going to that entire skills competition. Everything else could have been awful. Just to see them just do that.
I'll never forget the commentary when they first started. They were like, I hope that glass behind the net's reinforced.
I hope
if this thing hits the glass, it's going to shatter it.
Oh my god!
And I'm just thinking, because that's like.
Yeah, no question.
Oh my gosh.
Now I can tell you this: I played with a guy, and the fastest shot I ever saw in person was this guy I played with in juniors, and he had a 92-mile-an-hour slap shot for a 17-year-old, and so I literally saw this thing. It looked like a black blur. Like, when it leaves his stick, you're like, wait, it hit the net? Like, what? Like, because you saw it, and then it was like a little blur, and then you hear, and then I'm like, wait, he hit the net? And so we see it on television. We see the slap shot, and we go, wow, that's freaking impressive. But when you see it in person, you're like, that's not real. It's not real.
It's so much more intimidating being on level with it, too, and like seeing – You see him draw back, and you know that he's a hard shooter. You're like, uh-oh. Like,
It's the equivalent of like Johan Duran's fastball. It's like, did he just throw that?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
103, 5.
Yeah.
What? I can't hit that. Well, what do you want me to do with that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, coach. Did you expect me to block that shot?
You get in net and do it.
I hate to break
Right.
it to you, coach, but I like all my ribs in one piece. So I don't
Like
think I'm
that-
gonna
that's
throw
where,
myself
like,
in front of that one.
That's like where a coach like Patrick Waugh, like if he
Yeah.
goes, you should block that. He goes, you go back in there and block that. He's like, no,
You
my
blocked
guy.
it. No, I'm
He's like,
good.
guys like that didn't shoot like that when I played. No.
Oh
Look,
man.
coach, I'll throw myself in front of a lot. That never. Like,
Nope.
God no. God no.
Like
All
that,
right.
that's
Oh
the job,
man.
is stand in front of a 102-mile-an-hour slap shot. Okay, yeah, no, I'm good.
just pull the Happy Gilmore and just put a coin in for the pitching machine. Put on,
Right.
Don't even put on a helmet and just stand over home plate.
Oh man. Yeah. Yeah. Just and also congratulations to both Joe Thornton and Zdeno Chara on a great career. Story of my life, basically, as a hockey fan, and great careers, and hopefully we'll see hopefully one day we'll see another great historical great like comparison duo with the Flyers having that big man like Zdeno Chara. I could see Bum probably do something like that, or maybe I just want. I mean, the one thing I would say though is that they probably have to do like a competition, like I brought up earlier, what the NBA does with the 3-point shot with Steph Curry versus Caitlin Clark or Sabrina Eskew. They got to bring up Zdeno Chara and the best, and whoever the big slap shot guy is for just to pay tribute to. So like it's just it was
Well,
just a fun time for hockey.
They did that one time when they brought Ray Bork back.
Right. That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
For like the accuracy, because for anyone who doesn't know, Ray Bork was the master of the plates.
Oh man.
And so he could knock 5 for 5. And he was like precision personified.
Right.
And I'm like, if anyone can bottle a skill set and give it to any other player in the league, Ray Bork's accuracy would be the skill that I would choose. Because for a guy who just like, I want to put it right there. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. And so, like, a goaltender is like, that's just not fair. You can't aim a puck. He's like, yes, I can.
You get said about Owen Nolan. He called his shot back in that All-Star game. He called the shot.
He did. Yes, he did.
I got to tell you what, though. I loved Owen Nolan. I was a fan. I was a big fan of Owen Nolan. I was a fan of him, like you brought up earlier with that San Jose Sharks team. You know, it was just it was fun to see back in the day. Even like Ilya Kovalchuk and even Marian Hossa too. It's a shame hockey's not the same as it once was, but hopefully down the road go back to what it once was, and even like Danny Heatley too. Like so, it's it's one thing that's been missing.
I will say this: the Flyers are probably the closest team that I think is trying to bring back a little of that physicality.
For sure.
Like with the past 3 games, I saw Garnet Hathaway really kind of put some level of physicality, and we've talked about Delorier and some of those guys. Like those guys put some physicality on some of these skilled players, and some of these skilled players, outside of the 6'8" giants, like look at these guys and go, okay, relax, calm down. Like that physicality, I think we're cyclical in the NHL. We've gone from like super fast athletic guys to now super fast, hard hitting athletic guys to like these really like role playing, I'm going to hit you and it's going to hurt kind of guys.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to kind of bring the league back cyclically to a little bit of the old school. You're still going to have the McDavid kind of Suzuki kind of like really skillful
spit nickels on his forehead type of feel. Yeah.
But you're going to have those Garnet Hathaways and Deloriers really like lay you out.
Yeah, that's what's missing in this day and age of like hockey, is especially that old enforcer like somebody that's gonna like try to like level down your opponent, and also at the same time too is that you're gonna drop the gloves with somebody. Even like a couple of days ago, there was like Dylan Cousins knocking down Jolson, and it was like a big melee that happened, and hopefully that comes back very very soon. I think that's what's missing in hockey nowadays, is that that the real thing that I always loved about hockey is that even though it's a physical game, like it was probably the best hockey to watch was like from 2005 to maybe like 2017 or 18. But the Flyers were
I
obviously
liked how Juleson responded.
yeah,
Got hit like that, and he got right back up, and he was
and-
like, "No, you ain't pushing me down like that." Like he stood
kudos
his
to him.
ground. Yes, and I know like people are like, "Yeah, but he could have had a power." Yeah, I understand, but there's some things bigger than a penalty. You have to show that you're not willing to get pushed around. And
Old time hockey.
right. And this team, I feel like, is the closest thing to some of that old time hockey. I mean, that was the thing. When Zdeno Chara and Joe Thornton played, like their teammates, if they had guys that were getting knocked down or bullied, Joe Thornton and Zdeno Chara were the first two men to probably drop the gloves and stand up for their guys.
Mhm.
Like that part of that brand of hockey, yeah, it's dead, but I honestly feel like the Flyers show the most similarities to bringing that kind of type of hockey back.
Right. Gotcha. And the last thing I'll say about this too is that I kind of missed that kind of style of hockey that like even reminds me when the Flyers and Penguins, and even we brought it up on the shows that we're gonna see that old school like brawl that we had like with Crosby versus Timonen and the whole brawl that happened in that 2012 postseason. But I want to see that more often. Is that obviously not go crazy to see goaltenders fight. I mean, even like that game against the Senators back in 2004. I mean, that was a crazy matchup. But I remember back in 2003 when these two clubs and their minor league affiliates were like going back and forth with the Phantoms and the Senators, and just Neil Little just sucker punching somebody. So yeah, I mean, it's like it's one of those things that's been missing, and I hope it comes back very, very soon too. All right, that's going to wrap up this edition of This Week at Flyers Hockey. Like we always do, I want to thank Austin Hammel and Joey Marks joining us like I always do. Austin, where can people see you next, my friend?
Throughout the week, I'm going to be doing some streams over at twitch.tv/Hambo26. Still running through my first playthrough of Mario Sunshine. I've been doing a couple other little things here and again, but I believe this Saturday, Art and I will be back with the Hardcore Play podcast. We're not 100% sure on what we're going to do just yet. We took the weekend off because, like I said, we were both on a on a little vacation for the weekend. But
nice.
Once we get that all figured out, I'll make sure everything's all set up so that way I can put the information out there for everyone.
Oh, yeah, cool. That's awesome stuff there. Joey, I forgot to. Where can people see you next, buddy?
Well, you can find me here on Hardcore Sports Network and Streampunk Entertainment PA. Fly Like an Eagle next time, Friday. We're going to probably talk about a little bit about the Birds beating up on the Packers and what's next for the Detroit Lions on Sunday Night Football.
Oh, yeah, that's going to be a good matchup. Hopefully, we'll see a lot of tush pushes tonight just to piss off Matt LaFleur and those Packers tonight, too. So, like I said, thanks everybody for tuning in. And we had a real good show today. I think it was a real good show for our viewers and stuff. So anyways, if you are a new member, a full member, or just a member already, hit that like and subscribe button over at our sister station, Streampunk Entertainment, and also our stations over at Hardcore Sports Network. And we'll be back again next week to talk about this matchups between the Flyers taking on the Oilers, Blues, and the Stars. And we're going to get ready for Eagles football tonight, taking on those Green Bay Packers. So now for everyone behind the scenes and for everyone that made it work here, for Austin Hammel and for Joey Marks here, I'm James Scorza, and this has been This Week at Flyers Hockey. From all of us to all of you, thank you for watching. Good night, good hockey, and we'll see you guys next week. Go Birds.
Go Birds! Let's go!
Birds.